The vast hall echoed with hollow footsteps as the billionaire sheikh stood motionless, his silhouette a dark monolith against the shimmering marble floors and walls adorned with gold leaf so lustrous it rivaled the desert sun. Yet beneath that invincible facade lay a storm, an ache that no amount of wealth could calm. Tonight, his empire, as grand as it was, felt like a prison constructed of silence and regret. Outside, Devidal, the emirate glittered, a mirage of opulence where towers stretched into the violet sky and fountains sang secrets of endless riches. Inside the palace, velvet curtains framed windows revealing endless dunes, their undulating forms a quiet contrast to the steel and crystal luxury that surrounded him. The scent of rare oriental jasmine hung delicately, momentarily softening the austere air. His gaze, cold and unwavering, fixed on a photograph once hidden deep in the cedar drawer, a tender face, bruised by tears and abandonment. The woman who had dared to love him, who bore the silent burden of their broken past. Her eyes held a torrent beneath their steady calm, a resilience forged in shadowed nights and whispered prayers. She was his greatest mistake and his most haunting memory. A voice drifted from the doorway. "You cannot control the past, my sheikh," the trusted aide warned. Yet the sheikh's fingers clenched the glass of his rarest whiskey until it fractured, droplets falling like blood onto the marble. "The past is the chain around my neck," he murmured, dark eyes burning with a conflicted flame. "She carried my child, and I left her with nothing but silence." Suddenly, the heavy doors burst open. She stood there, her presence a defiant thunderclap against the silent torment of the palace. The heroine's chest rose with steady breaths, but her eyes burned with whispered storms, unbroken despite all. "Why now?" His voice was a blend of command and desperation. She met his gaze without flinching. "Because the child deserves more than your absence. Because I refuse to be your forgotten secret." Time shuddered between them, heavy with years of pain and unspoken words. The power that had once blinded him now felt fragile, vulnerable to the force of her unwavering strength. Then, in the midst of this shattered reconciliation, a whispered message arrived, a curt note from the sheikh's advisor. The empire's foundation was crumbling. Enemies long buried had risen, threatening to swallow everything he had built. There was no turning back now. The heroine's hand tightened over her growing belly. A defiant spark kindled in her eyes. Her next move could either shatter him forever or bind their fates in an unbreakable bond forged through pain and hope. And before the next secret of this vast empire unfolds, quickly check if you're already part of our caravan of stories. Many destinies are yet to be shaped, and I don't want you to miss a single moment. Leave your like if this sheikh's heart has already intrigued you. Tell me in the comments, from which city are you following this saga, and what twist do you think awaits us next? Your passion for these dramas is what inspires us to continue. Thank you for being with us. The note felt heavier than the marble beneath. His shattered glass. The words whispered through the vast gilded palace like a chilling wind. Enemies had risen from shadows long forgotten, threatening the sheikh's empire. the oasis of power he had so meticulously built. He didn't need to look up to know she was watching him. Her presence filled the room with the fierce grace of a desert storm, steady yet wild beneath the veils of silk that traced the curve of her growing belly. The child they shared, an unspoken truth between them, was both their greatest vulnerability and their last hope. "You cannot run from this," she said, her voice steady as the jasmine-scented air lingered, though the weight between them felt suffocating. "You must face it, for all of us." His eyes, dark and unreadable, met hers. The sharpness in his gaze was tempered by something softer this time, a flicker of reluctant trust. "And if I lose everything, if this empire crumbles beneath my feet, what will be left of the Billionaire Sheikh then?" She stepped forward, a defiant flame burning beneath the silk shawl. "Then you will remember what truly matters. Not towers or treasures, but those who stand by you when the walls fall." The silence stretched, filled with the echoes of years lost, betrayals unspoken, and love denied. Outside, the desert wind howled past the palace walls, its timeless song weaving drama into the night. Suddenly, the heavy doors creaked open again, revealing a figure swathed in shadows. A cousin entrusted with estate management, but rumored to have ambitions that whispered dangerously close to treason. "Your Grace," the man's voice was smooth, but laced with subtle menace. "News from the Northern Territories. The alliance you forged is weaker than you believed. Some say it will dissolve with the next moon." The Sheikh's jaw tightened, muscles coiling beneath his silk robe. "And what do you intend to do about it?" The cousin's smile was cold. "Only what you command. But be warned, not all allies are as loyal as they appear." The heroine's fingers brushed her belly, the life within her pulsing like a heartbeat, tethered to both their fates. Her spirit, tempered by years of hardship and fierce resolve, refused to bend under the weight of looming betrayal. "You'll have to trust me," she said, voice barely above a whisper, eyes searching his, "even when it feels impossible." He took a step towards her, the grandness of the hall shrinking beneath the gravity of their shared vulnerability. For a fleeting moment, the wealth and power dissolved into the quiet desperation of two souls clinging to fragile hope. "Do you think I don't know the cost?" His voice cracked, raw and human. "Leaving you alone, broken, carrying my child without a word or a promise. That silence was a sentence as cruel as any." Her eyes filled with tears, but her chin lifted, fierce and unyielding. "And yet, here I am, still standing, not as your secret, but as your reckoning." Their breaths mingled in the charged air. The empire beyond these walls was under siege, but within them another kind of battle raged, between pride and forgiveness, fear and love. The cousin's returned gaze grew colder as he watched the moment unfold. Schemes spun. Silently, in the corners of the palace, where allies whispered treachery and enemies sharpened their knives. "You have one chance," the Sheikh said, voice low but resolute. "Stand with me or step aside." Her answer was a steady hand upon his. "Together, always." Just as the promise settled between them, A soft shuffle echoed through the corridor. A maid with an urgent message. The courier's face was pale, eyes wide with fear. "Your Grace, the southern caravan was attacked. None have returned." The room froze. The desert night, once a quiet witness to their fragile truce, now roared with an ominous threat. The Sheikh's gaze hardened. This was no longer just a fight for his empire, but for the very survival of those he loved, and the unborn child who embodied a future drenched in hope and peril. His voice fell to a whisper, a vow forged in the shadows where power and pain intertwined. "They want to break me, but they have yet to understand the heart of a Sheikh Billionario." A long breath, weighted with the promise of storms yet to come. Outside, the moon cast silver light over sand and stone, where secrets waited beneath every grain. The heroine's eyes met his, unyielding and fierce. "Then let them come." And as the colossal door shut behind the whispered warnings, the palace held its breath, guarding its silent wars, its fragile peace, and the untold secrets one whispered storm was determined to unravel. The dim glow of the moon wove silver threads through the vast curtains, casting trembling patterns upon the marble floor. The silence that settled after the Maid's chilling news was a living thing, heavy, suffocating, as if the palace itself held its breath. The billionaire Sheikh's eyes sharpened, fire igniting beneath the surface. That quiet, relentless desert wind outside seemed to carry whispers of imminent betrayal, of enemies circling like vultures, poised for the kill. Each breath he drew tasted of iron and resolve. The heroine stepped closer, her hand resting protectively on her swollen belly. The life inside her, a fragile beacon amid encroaching darkness. Her gaze burned with fierce determination, yet there was an unmistakable tremble in her voice when she spoke. "They struck the southern caravan. No survivors. The men we trusted, they were ambushed." A flash of cold fury crossed the Sheikh's face. The empire he had built, the fragile threads of peace, sewn with blood and diplomacy, now threatened to unravel with every passing moment. "No mercy," he ground out, voice low and raw. "This is war, and I am not a man who yields." She said nothing, but the strength in her posture spoke volumes. The years of distance, of silence between them, condensed into a single shared conviction. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. From the shadows emerged a figure no one had noticed before, an elder advisor, his face etched with lines deeper than the scars of battles past. In his eyes swam not only fear, but secrets held too long, buried beneath layers of loyalty and doubt. "Your Grace," he said quietly, voice cracked with urgency. "Intelligence from the capital suggests the rebellion is more extensive than we feared. They move with precision, with knowledge." The Sheikh clenched his jaw, muscles twitching beneath the heavy silk cloak. His empire, vast and glittering, was a fragile mirage. Every stone, every servant, every ally was a potential traitor's tool, a trap hidden beneath golden smiles. He turned slowly to the heroine, the woman who had been absent from his throne, yet never from his mind, even in his darkest hours. The warmth she radiated was a stark contrast to the cold marble and colder realities of power. "Why have you come back to me now?" he demanded, voice barely above a whisper, but no less commanding. After all I left behind, all I buried to survive? Her eyes did not waver, though a shadow passed through them. Because our child needs a father, because you cannot fix this empire alone, and because I refuse to be just a memory. The past will not save me, he said, voice breaking like brittle glass. But perhaps you can. An uneasy silence followed, the kind weighted with unspoken regrets and fragile hopes. Outside, the faint melody of a distant oud drifted through the heavy air, as though the desert itself mourned their fractured history. The distant echo of footsteps heralded the arrival of the cousin from the northern territories, the man whose ambition whispered dangerously close to treason. His eyes glinted with calculated interest as he stepped into the light, every bit the snake wrapped in silk. "Your Grace," the cousin said smoothly, bowing with practiced grace, "the Northern Alliance is crumbling quicker than expected, and our forces are spread thin. The rebellion gains strength by the hour." His voice lilted with a hidden threat, a dangerous game veiled beneath loyal words. The Sheikh's gaze narrowed into slits, danger ringing in every muscle. "And what of loyalty, Hassan? Are you here to serve or to seduce my crown?" A cold smirk played on Hassan's lips, a flash of teeth that promised treachery beyond words. "Loyalty is as valuable as the one who claims it, Your Grace. Choose your allies wisely." The heroine's fingers curled tightly into a fist, nails digging into silk. "We need more than threats and whispers. We need strategy and trust." The room seemed to shrink beneath the weight of their combined presence. Two forces that once collided, now reluctantly converging. Each step towards reconciliation was a fragile thread pulled taut between love and bitterness. The Sheikh's voice dropped, laced now, with a rare vulnerability. "I chose silence. I thought burying the past would shield my future, but I was wrong." Her eyes welled with tears that reflected both pain and hope. "We all were. But the future still belongs to us, in whatever shape we are willing to fight for." Suddenly, the heavy oak doors groaned open once more, admitting one of the palace guards, his face pale beneath his helmet. He bowed stiffly, voice trembling. "A messenger arrived, Your Grace." A sealed letter from the south, blood-stained. The Sheikh's hand shot out before the guard could speak further, snatching the letter with trembling urgency. Breaking the fragile wax seal, he unfolded the creased paper, eyes scanning each word with mounting dread. The letter spoke of collusion, trusted merchants conspiring with rebels, betrayal woven deep into the fabric of the emirate. The southern caravan's attack was just the opening move in a greater collapse. The palace seemed to shift. The air grew colder, more charged. The heroines swallowed hard, the weight of their child growing heavier than ever. "We are not just fighting shadows. This is a war on every front," he whispered, lips tightening into a thin line. "But no one will take what is ours without paying dearly." Her breath caught. The fierce protectiveness that had defined her years alone flaring anew. "Then we will fight, not as enemies, but as storm and desert, bound, unbreakable." He stepped close, the arrogance that once masked his pain now softened into something raw. human. Fingers brushed lightly over her wrist, a silent promise that no matter the siege, no matter the cost, he would stand with her. Their eyes locked, a collision of past wounds and future hope. Outside, unseen beneath pools of moonlight, a shadow watched from the edge of the dunes, silent, knowing. The Empire's heart was about to be shattered, and within its fractured glass, a secret waited. One that could destroy the Sheikh forever, or unite them all in a way no enemy had dared imagine. The message from the south weighed on the room like a shroud, chilling the warm opulence that once felt invincible. The Sheikh's fingers tightened around the folded letter, knuckles pale beneath the silk of his robe, betraying the tempest that raged within. Outside, the desert wind whispered threats across the dunes, a haunting reminder that their world was crumbling beneath shifting sands. The heroine's gaze did not waver. Her hand rested protectively on her swollen belly, the life inside a fragile emblem of hope and defiance against the encroaching darkness. Her eyes blazed with determination, yet beneath that fire, a quiet fear lingered, a secret vulnerability shielded by years of resilience. "We've lost trusted men," she said, voice steady though lined with sorrow. "Those who should have been our shield became the first victims. The southern caravan was no accident. It's a message." The Sheikh's jaw clenched. His empire, vast and gleaming with gold and glass, revealed cracks no wealth could conceal. Every shimmering pillar, every ornate archway felt like a cage tightening around his shoulders. The weight of legacy pressed down, heavier than any desert sun. "I underestimated them," his voice cracked, more a confession than a command. His eyes found hers, searching not just for answers, but for a lifeline. "And I underestimated what I left unsaid, what I left undone." She stepped closer, the scent of rich spices and jasmine entwining with the tension. "You left a silence too heavy to carry alone. But we're here now." He looked away, a shadow crossing his features as memories surged. Nights of absence, promises broken by pride, and the widening chasm between his throne and the woman who had stayed behind, bearing their child. The image of her tear-streaked face haunted the palace as cruelly as any enemy. "Because of me," he murmured, swallowing the sting of regret. "You sacrificed so much." Her hand rose, brushing a stray lock of hair from his temple, the gesture tender yet firm. "Not because of you, because of us, because of what we could be, if only pride didn't bind us." The room seemed to contract as the doors creaked again, revealing Hassan, the cousin whose loyalty had long been shadowed by ambition. His eyes, gleaming with cold calculation, surveyed the scene with veiled amusement. "Your Grace," Hassan intoned, with elegant menace. "The factions grow restless. The capital's whispers speak of rebellion, not just in the north, but weaving through every court and corridor. Your reign is more fragile than ever." The Sheikh's gaze sharpened into steel. "And you, Hassan, where do you stand in this tempest? Will you be the dagger in my back, or the hand I grasp when darkness falls?" A faint, mocking smile played on Hassan's lips. A man's survival lies with those he trusts most. Choose wisely, my sheikh. The heroine's eyes narrowed, defiance flashing like swords beneath her lids. Trust is earned, not commanded, and nothing's earned in betrayal. The sheikh's voice dropped, vulnerable yet resolute. I was a prisoner of my own shadows, drowning in the silence I created. Maybe it's time to break those chains. She reached out, the silk of her robe whispering against his, with the softness of a secret. Their fingers brushed, a spark igniting between two souls battered by time and regret, but refusing to break. The child I carry, she whispered, voice tethered to hope and fear. They are the future we fight for. His breath caught in his throat, the arrogance of a billionaire reduced to the fragile man before her. Then let this be the fight that mends what's been broken. A murmur rippled through the distant halls as the palace guard reappeared, urgency etched on his face. My sheikh, he announced, bowing low. New intelligence. The southern merchants, once loyal, now collude with enemies. Their greed blinds them to the blood they spill. The room tightened, the air brittle with betrayal. The icons of power, golden chandeliers, embroidered tapestries, polished marble, all witnessed a man standing at the edge of ruin. She pressed closer, a fortress of resolve. Betrayal surrounds us, but it will not define us. We face this storm, not as solitary figures, but as one. His gaze lingered on her, the woman who was more than a memory, more than a secret kept in shadows. In her strength he glimpsed salvation. Tell me, he breathed, voice low with a mixture of pain and yearning. Can the man known as the Billionaire Sheikh be more than the myths he built? Can he step beyond the empire of dust and gold into the man who stands before you? She smiled faintly, a promise forged through years of heartache. He already has. Together, we will be stronger than any empire, even when the foundations shake. From the darkest wings of the palace, a silent observer watched, the cold glint of a dagger catching stray moonlight, eyes calculating, waiting to strike. A secret whispered beneath the desert stars, a secret dangerous enough to shatter all they believed in or bind them irrevocably. And as the first faint light of dawn touched the soaring minarets, the sheikh's voice echoed in the stillness, a vow sharpened by fire and love. I will face them all, no matter the cost. But the shadow watching from the dunes hid a revelation even he could never foresee. The weight of the blood-stained letter still lingered in the air, an invisible tether tightening around the billionaire Sheikh's chest. The fragile peace within these gilded walls had shattered, and now, in the quiet aftermath of betrayal's revelation, a tempest brewed deep in his soul. The heroine stood unwavering beside him, her hand resting gently yet firmly on her swollen belly, a fragile life pulsing with hope amid encroaching darkness. The scent of rare jasmine and oud lingered, mingling with the heavy tension that wrapped the vast hall like a suffocating shroud. Her gaze, fierce and undaunted, found his. They underestimated us, and they will regret it. But their threats will not break what we are trying to rebuild. He inhaled sharply, the rich marble beneath his feet seeming suddenly colder. His empire, once an unassailable fortress, had become a battlefield riddled with hidden traps and whispered curses. Yet here, In this moment, it was not wealth or power that grounded him, but the fragile promise cradled beneath the silk of her robe. "You have no idea what I have lost," he whispered, voice hoarse. "Not just men, not just territory, but everything I thought I could protect without asking for help." His dark eyes burned with conflicted fire, pride battling desperation. She stepped closer, her fingers curling around his wrist with unexpected strength. "Then stop fighting alone." Her words held not just a plea, but a command born of harsh truths. "We are stronger together. The child, our future, deserves that." His breath caught, the hardness in his gaze softening for a moment. Rare heartbeat. The walls around the palace seemed to fade, leaving only two fractured souls seeking redemption in each other's eyes. A sharp knock echoed through the hall. Both turned as one, instinct sharpened by years of court intrigue. The door opened, and Hassan entered, his cousin's sly smile a mask for schemes yet to be unveiled. He bowed with practiced grace, his voice dripping with cultivated civility. "Your Grace, the rebellion's roots dig deeper than we imagined. Traders from the south and nobles from the north have aligned. The palace itself holds whispers of treachery, the Sheikh's jaw clenched, every muscle taut beneath flowing robes embroidered with gold. Tell me what you want, Hassan. Your words carry poison, as thick as the desert sands." A chilling smile curved Hassan's lips. "Merely truths you must face. Loyalty is a rare jewel these days. Some seek to polish it, others to shatter it." Her voice steady and clear. "If betrayal grows among us, then honesty must be our shield." The room seemed to breathe with unsaid words and secrets too dangerous to voice aloud. The grandeur of the marble pillars and the intricate mosaics were silent witnesses to a coronation of shadows, where trust was a currency more precious than gold. The Sheikh's gaze fell to the floor briefly, the weight of his own silence settling like dust on ancient tapestries. "I built walls, not bridges. I thought power alone would keep us safe. I was a blind man wrapped in silk." Her hand found his again, this time lacing their fingers together, an unspoken vow stirring between them. "Then let us build something new, a foundation of truth and strength." The murmurs of distant footsteps grew louder as the palace guard returned, bearing news that hollowed out what little calm remained. "A messenger from the southern border, Your Grace," the guard announced, handing over a sealed scroll. "Urgent and grave." Unfolding the parchment, the Sheikh's dark eyes scanned words that spoke of poisoned alliances and planned uprisings. The southern caravan's destruction was only the beginning, a violent message carved with blood and treason. His knuckles whitened around the letter. The betrayal was woven into the very fabric of the emirate. Darkness was creeping through every shimmer of gold, threatening to consume them all. She tightened her grip on his hand, the resolve behind her eyes flashing fiercely. "They think they can drown us in chaos. But every storm makes the desert bloom." A long, slow breath left him. The arrogance and pride of the billionaire sheikh slowly melting into something raw and real. If they want war, I will give them one, but not just for the empire, for the child who carries our legacy. The reason I cannot collapse. He stepped toward a vast window, overlooking the endless dunes bathed in moonlight. The desert stretched, both beautiful and merciless, like the fate looming before them. A perfect mirror of his own soul, fractured yet unyielding. Her voice was a whisper against the roar of the wind. Together we will be the storm they never saw coming. The Shah's expression darkened, his hunter's instinct sharpening. Prepare the guards. Summon our closest allies. We will strike first, swift and without mercy. His voice was steel forged through fire, a vow echoing through the silent halls. Then, as if to remind them that threat was closer than any had guessed, the heavy doors creaked open again. A figure slipped silently into the shadows of the hall. One thought long banished, but never truly gone. The palace held its breath as a soft but chilling voice emerged from the darkness, laden with a truth no gold could hide. You think betrayal outside these walls is your greatest threat? The voice whispered, cold as the desert night. But the deepest knives are those plunged by blood. The billionaire sheikh and the heroine turned sharply. Their eyes met once more, fear mingling with fierce determination, realizing that the fight ahead was more dangerous than ever before. And in that fragile moment of unity, the secret lurking within the palace breathed quietly, waiting for the perfect time to shatter everything or become their salvation. The wheel of night spun relentlessly above the sprawling emirate, spilling a cold silver light through towering windows that framed endless desert sands. The silence within the palace was a fragile veil, barely concealing the tension that crackled like static between the billionaire sheikh and the woman who had returned to shatter the walls he'd built around his soul. He stood at the edge of the vast hall, muscles taut beneath flowing silk, eyes burning with a mix of fury and raw vulnerability. The blood-stained letter lay still in his palm, its inked words a poison that seeped into the very foundation of his empire. Betrayal, treason, shadows that clawed at everything he thought unbreakable. She approached quietly, the scent of rare jasmine and oud woven into the delicate fabric that cloaked her bulging belly. The child they shared was more than a symbol. It was their fragile beacon amid the encroaching darkness. "You think the betrayal is just in the streets," she said softly, voice steady as the desert wind that whispered their names beyond the palace walls. "But it's in the halls, in the hearts of those you called family." His gaze faltered for a heartbeat, then hardened like tempered steel. "I thought power would protect us. I was a fool." "No," she replied, stepping effortlessly beside him. "You were a man blinded by pride, chained to silence. But pride won't save you now." The memories that haunted him pressed forward. Nights alone, a fortress built with cold eyes and colder walls. The years of absence searing through the fabric of love that could have been. Her hand brushed his wrist, a whisper of warmth against the chill of his regret. "We have to face this storm together, for our child, for what we still could be." A shadow moved in the doorway, and Hassan entered, the cousin whose smile never reached his eyes. His presence was a poison wrapped in silk, a subtle threat that filled the room with an unspoken menace. "Your Grace," Hassan said, voice smooth and calculated, "the rebellion festers deeper than you imagined. The northern territories grow restless, and even the merchants you trusted now conspire in darkness." The billionaire Sheikh's jaws clenched as the weight of those words sank in. "And your place in this? Treachery?" Hassan's gaze flickered with cold amusement. "Loyalty is a coin purchased by strength and fear. I serve only those wise enough to wield power." Her eyes narrowed, their fiery defiance flaring beneath the heavy silks. "Beware the knives that come from within." He turned back to her, the raw honesty in his dark eyes breaking through the armor he had worn for too long. "I left you with silence and secrets so heavy they almost crushed you. How can I ask you to trust me now?" Tears welled, shimmering like fractured jewels, but her chin rose in quiet defiance. "Because despite it all, I'm still here. Not your forgotten past, but your reckoning." The room seemed to hold its breath as their fingers entangled, an unspoken vow beneath the marble arches. A sudden knock cracked the fragile moment. A palace guard appeared, eyes wide and voice trembling. "Your Grace, a messenger from the southern border." He handed over a sealed scroll, its edges stained with dirt and dread. Breaking the wax, the Sheikh's eyes darted across the chilling words. Allies turned traitors, vendettas etched in ink and blood, a planned uprising ready to tear the emirate apart. His knuckles whitened, trembling with the weight of a crown heavy with loss. She pressed close, her breath warm against the cool marble. "They think we will fall like grains of sand, but every storm carves new paths through the desert." For a moment, the billionaire behind the sheikh crumbled, replaced by a man stripped of pretenses, raw, desperate to reclaim what pride cost him. "If they seek war, I will give them a tempest unlike any before, not just for the empire, but for the life growing inside you." The heroine's hand tightened over the soft curve of her belly, determination blazing in her eyes. "Together, we will be the storm they dread, bound by blood, fate, and fierce love." The distant echoes of footsteps signaled Hassan's return, his face unreadable yet dangerously calm. "Your Grace, whispers reach even the highest towers. The rebellion is no longer confined. It spreads like wildfire." The Sheikh's glance sharpened. "Then the time for shadows is over. Gather our allies. Every soldier, every blade ready." His voice was steel, forged in fire and tempered by a desperate hope. The massive door shifted, revealing a figure cloaked in darkness, a ghost from the past whose name was spoken only in hushed tones. "You believe the enemy lies only outside these walls." The voice cut through the silence, cold and venomous, but the deepest wounds come from those who smile closest. The Sheikh's eyes met hers, fear mingled with a fierce resolve. The palace held its breath, the fragile truce suspended on the edge of chaos. In that moment, the secret, long buried, waiting beneath layers of gold and dust, stirred. A secret powerful enough to shatter empires and rebuild destinies. The heroine's voice was barely a whisper, yet it carried the weight of 1,000 promises. Whatever comes, we face it as one. The Sheikh's lips curved into a grim smile, a final defiance. Let them come, for I am the Billionaire Sheikh, and those who threaten my blood will find the desert harsher than any stone. Outside, under the watchful gaze of the moon, the sands shifted, carrying whispers of betrayal, love, and a truth ready to ignite the empire in flames. The cold desert wind whispered against the latticework windows, threading its icy fingers through the vast hall. Yet inside the gilded walls, the air was thick, heavy with unspoken fears and fragile hopes. The Billionaire Sheikh stood motionless, the blood-stained letter clenched tightly in his hand, his dark eyes tracing the swirling patterns of marble and gold around him, as if seeking answers in their endless complexity. She was there beside him, the scent of jasmine and oud worn like armor, her hand resting protectively on the curve of her belly. The child inside her, a living promise amidst the storm, was the fragile axis upon which their fractured world now balanced. "I won't let them break what remains," she whispered, voice steadier than the trembling pulse beneath her fingertips. His jaw clenched, a muscle twitching beneath the silk folds. "I built an empire on power," he said, voice low, haunted. "But I was blind to the cracks running beneath, loyalty broken, trust betrayed." Her gaze met his, fierce and unyielding. "And yet you stand, not because of your wealth, but because you have me, and what we carry within." The distant echo of footsteps sliced through the tense silence as Hassan entered, sliding into the room like a shadow cast from poisoned sands. His smile was a blade disguised by silk, a chilling reminder of the peril close to home. "Your Grace," he murmured, bowing with the elegance of a snake coiling in wait. Whispers from every corner speak of rebellion's pulse quickening. The allies you counted on fracture beneath pressure. The northern tribes grow restless, and the merchants, they dance with our enemies. The Sheikh's gaze narrowed to mere slits, sharp as desert thorns. "And you, where do your loyalties lie, Hassan?" A flicker of cold amusement danced in the cousin's eyes. "With whoever commands the strength to survive, Your Grace." The woman beside him tightened her grip on his arm, siding her fierce will with his faltering resolve. "We cannot afford to be divided. Trust is our sword and shield now." He exhaled sharply, a breath pulled deep from a well of wounds and regrets. "I silenced the past to protect the future," he admitted, dark eyes flickering with vulnerability. "But that silence almost killed me." She smiled, fragile yet fierce, the heat of 1,000 suns behind her calm. "The past may be a shadow, but our future remembers your promises. I am here, no longer your secret, but your reckoning." That word hung between them, heavy and electric. The walls themselves seemed to lean in, witnessing a fragile truce tenuously stitched from fractured pride and battered love. Suddenly, the heavy oak doors veered open again, and a breathless guard entered, eyes wide with dread. In his hands A bronze scroll, sealed with crimson wax, marked by the dust and ashes of battle. "My sheikh," the man said, voice cracking. "A message from the southern border. The merchants loyal to the crown are now complicit in betrayal. The caravan's destruction was but a prelude." The sheikh snatched the letter, unfolding its creased edges with trembling fingers. Each word etched a deeper wound: collusion, bloodshed, plans to crumble the very foundation of his empire. His hand tightened around the parchment until the faded paper tore, the sound brittle as bone beneath the vast archways. Outside, the desert night seemed to hold its breath, the howling wind matching the storm roaring in his chest. The plush tapestries and glittering chandeliers blurred as his mind raced, a castle of lies built atop shifting sands. She stepped closer, the softness of her voice a beacon slicing through despair. "They think we will fall like dust in the wind, but every storm carves the desert anew. We will rise." For an instant, the sheikh allowed himself to fall, to feel the raw ache of failure and loss. The proud billionaire, stripped bare by the truth, left only with the fragile hope carried inside the woman beside him. "If this is war," he said, voice rough with resolve, "then I will be its fiercest tempest, not just for the empire, but for the child who will inherit all we fight for." Her hand pressed tighter to her belly, the life pulsing there a heartbeat tethering their fates. "Together, we will be the storm they never see coming." The creak of the doors startled them once more, revealing Hassan's patient return. His smile was colder this time, the weight of unseen schemes lingering like smoke. "The rebellion spreads, Your Grace," he warned softly, "like wildfire licking at the palace walls." The sheikh's gaze locked on the cousin, every fiber of his being coiled and ready. "The time for shadows is over. We strike before they strike us." His declaration echoed through the chamber, steel forged from fire and desperation. Suddenly, a voice cut through the charged silence, soft, chilling, familiar. From the dark recesses of the hall stepped a figure once banished but never gone, their presence a promise of cataclysm. "You think the enemy lies beyond these walls?" The whisper slithered like poison. "But the deepest wounds come from those you call kin." The sheikh and the heroine turned sharply, eyes locking in a fierce blend of fear and unspoken understanding. The fragile piece shattered like glass, leaving the shards of betrayal shining cruelly in the moonlight. And beneath the palace, buried beneath treasures and secrets, the final shadow stirred. A secret potent enough to sever crowns and bind hearts. The heroine's voice trembled, but held steady. A vow made in the storm's eye. "Together we will face whatever comes." A grim, knowing smile touched the sheikh's lips, a final defiance blazing in his dark eyes. "Let them come," he breathed, "for I am the Billionaire Sheikh, and those who threaten my blood will find the desert fiercer than any blade." The moonlight through the grand windows cast long shadows that danced like restless spirits across the marble floor. The vast hall felt colder tonight, as if it too recoiled from the weight of the secrets unraveling within its gilded walls. Silence stretched between the Billionaire Sheikh and the woman whose presence no longer felt like a shadow in his life, but a blazing force confronting every hidden fracture. His hand still trembled slightly, around the torn letter, its edges ragged from his fierce grip. Each burning word weighed heavier than the last. Treason laced in familiar names, betrayal raw and close, cutting deeper than any enemy beyond the desert sands. She stepped closer, the scent of jasmine and oud enveloping them both. Her fingers pressed protectively against the swell of life hidden beneath flowing silk, an anchor amidst the storm. "They think striking the caravan was enough," she said, voice low, yet defiant like desert thunder. But this was only the opening salvo. The real battle is in the whispers and shadows, inside these walls. His lips twisted with the bitter taste of regret. "I built a fortress of gold and glass, but the cracks were inside my own court. I was blind to the knives cloaked in smiles." Her eyes searched his, fierce and unrelenting. "And yet you stand, not as a man crushed by his mistakes, but as the storm that will tear those knives from the hands that wield them." The silence between them shimmered with years of pain and unspoken yearning. The palace seemed to inhale with the intensity of their reunion, a fragile peace woven from broken promises and desperate hope. A sudden shift in the air drew their attention to the heavy doors, which creaked open just enough for the shadow of a figure to slip inside. Hassan's silk-lined footsteps echoed ominously as he entered, his presence a cold gust in the heated room. "Your Grace," he murmured, bowing with a smile hard and sharp as obsidian. "The rebellion is no longer confined to the outskirts. Every ally we once trusted now dwells in perilous doubt. The northern tribes, the southern merchants, they conspire as one." The Sheikh's dark eyes narrowed into burning slits, every muscle coiled with years of grudges and battles fought both in blood and beneath the gilded chandeliers. "And you, Hassan, are you among the conspirators, or the sword that will cleave the darkness?" The smile lingered, brittle and dangerous. "Loyalty is a luxury few can afford, cousin. I serve the future." His gaze flicked to the heroine, where shadows of suspicion met the fire that refused to be quenched. She mirrored his gaze, unwavering as the desert stars. "And if loyalty is bought, then truth must be our price. Betrayal festers, not just outside these walls, but within. We must root it out." The Sheikh's voice softened, a rare vulnerability breaking through the armor of power. "I hid in silence, choosing pride over peace. It cost me more than land or lives. It cost the one promise I was sworn to protect." Her hand stole his, fingers curling tightly as if weaving a shield. "But now there are no more secrets between us. Only the battle ahead and the child we both protect. Our legacy is more than blood and gold. It is love forged through fire." He breathed in her words deeply, the grandeur of the palace fading to nothing more than a backdrop, to the most fragile and fierce bond he'd known. The cold marble underfoot no longer held the chill of isolation, but the pulse of a destiny reborn. A sudden rustle in the corridor warned them of another arrival. The palace guard entered, his face pale beneath a sweep of sweat. "Your Grace, a messenger from the southern border, bearing urgent news." His voice trembled as he handed over a sealed scroll etched with the dust and ash of conflict. The Sheikh untied the crimson wax seal, unfolding the worn parchment. His eyes drank the words, names of merchants turned traitors, whispers of planned sieges, betrayal that wound through every corner of the emirate like a serpent's coil. His grip tightened until the paper crumbled, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the hollow hall. "They underestimate the price of their treachery," he growled, the fire in his eyes blazing with a newfound recklessness. "They think chaos will break us. Instead, it will forge us." The heroine brushed a silken hand across the curve of her belly, determination sparking brighter than the chandelier's distant glimmers. "We are not the fragile sands they wish to scatter. We are the storm that reshapes the desert. Together, unyielding." He stepped to the window, staring out at the barren sweep, where moonlight kissed endless dunes, a mirror to the trials his heart endured. If war is theirs to seek, then let it come. But they will find no woman waiting with hope alone. They will find a sheikh's wrath, tempered by love and shattered pride. Her voice was a fierce whisper carried on the dry wind, and a child who carries the promise of renewal. Our future is not the empire they wish to burn. It is the bond they cannot tear apart. As the heavy doors groaned open again, Hassan re-entered, his expression colder, the shadow of his schemes deepening like desert twilight. "The rebellion infects even the highest towers, Your Grace. We stand on the edge of a knife," he warned, voice sibilant. The sheikh caught his gaze, the weight of crowns and blood thick in his voice. "Then the time for silence has ended. Gather our allies. Ready every sword, every shield. We strike first, and we strike true." The chamber held its breath until a voice, icy and familiar, cut through the charged silence. From the darkness stepped a figure from the past, one thought buried but never gone. "You believe the threat lies beyond these walls," the voice hissed, venom laced with bitter truth. "But be wary. The deadliest blade pierces closest to the heart." The sheikh and the woman shared a glance heavy with fear and resolve. The fragile truce shattered like glass beneath desert stars, leaving only fragments of trust and the unknown lurking among the glittering halls. Beneath the palace, hidden where no light reaches, a secret awakened. A secret fierce enough to tear kingdoms asunder, or bind shattered souls in a fate no one could foresee. Her breath barely rose above the whisper of the desert wind. "No matter what comes, we face it as one." His smile was a dark flame in the endless night. "Let them come, for I am the Billionaire Sheikh, and my blood will defend this empire until the last grain of sand falls." Suddenly, a slow, deliberate knock echoed from behind a hidden door, a door thought sealed forever. And behind it, a truth waited, one that would either break them completely or save them all. The first light of dawn painted the vast emirate in hues of gold and amber, melting the chill of night and promising a new beginning. Within the palace, the tension that had bound every heart and soul began to soften, replaced by a cautious hope that whispered through marble halls and silk-draped chambers. The Billionaire Sheikh stood before a window overlooking the awakening desert, his silhouette no longer a solitary shadow, but a figure tempered by lessons carved in pain and love. In his arms, the woman who had once been a ghost in his life, now breathed steady and warm. Her hand, resting protectively upon the life they had fought so dearly to safeguard. "The storm has passed," she whispered, her voice thick with exhaustion, yet radiant with triumph. "Together, we have weathered what seemed impossible." He turned to her. The hardness of his earlier resolve melted into something softer, an unguarded vulnerability that only she had ever coaxed from the depths of his guarded heart. "Whatever the cost, whatever the battles ahead, I will never face them without you." The palace around them bore the marks of a war waged in shadows. The halls still echoed with the footsteps of those who had plotted betrayal, and the weight of secrets once buried deep had finally been laid bare. But now, in this fragile moment of peace, every stone and tapestry seemed to breathe relief. Their enemies had been unmasked, Hassan's ambitions thwarted by the swift justice of loyal allies, and the unity forged in the blood of shared struggle. The merchants who had conspired against them were held accountable, their treachery met with decisive strength that reverberated across the emirate like a clarion call. Yet it was not only power that had saved them. It was the fragile alliance, born between two souls once divided by silence and pride. The billionaire sheikh, no longer a king ruling in isolation, stood humbled and whole beside the woman who had refused to be forgotten. She smiled, the soft curve of her lips a balm to years of scars and regret. "Our child will know peace and love, not shadows and silence." He glanced down to where her hand cupped the gentle rise of her belly, a silent promise of the future they were building together. This child is more than a legacy of blood and gold. They are the dawn that follows even the darkest night. Outside, the gardens bloomed with an unexpected vibrancy, as if the desert itself answered their union with fragrant life. The air carried a melody of renewal, birdsong mingling with the faint scent of blooming jasmine, filling the palace with a tangible sense of rebirth. Days passed, and the wounds of war began to heal beneath the careful ministrations of trust and forgiveness. The court, once rife with whispers of doubt, now echoed with voices united in hope and loyalty renewed. Friends long estranged found common ground. Enemies met justice, not vengeance. In the quiet sanctuary of their chambers, the sheikh traced the outlines of the woman's face with gentle reverence, the years of separation folding into something tender and true. "I was lost," he admitted softly, "in the labyrinth of my own making. But you found me when I thought all was lost." Her eyes shimmered with tears that were no longer of pain, but of fulfillment. Because love does not forget, even when voices fall silent. When at last the sun crowned the horizon with molten light, the palace was filled with the sound of celebration, a union not only of two hearts, but of an empire reborn through resilience and unyielding devotion. The billionaire sheikh stood beside his beloved as they exchanged vows before their people, the promise in their eyes a beacon for all who believed that even the deepest wounds could be healed. And in that moment, beneath the endless sky and amid the bloom of desert flowers, the future was no longer uncertain. It was a tapestry woven by two hands, steady in their commitment, a legacy of love, strength, and hope carried onward by the child growing gently within. The doors of the palace opened to a new dawn, and with it the sheikh embraced not just the vastness of his empire, but the boundless promise of a life reborn. No longer prisoner of silence and regret, he held in his arms the woman who had been the balm to his soul and the light that would guide them through every storm yet to come. Together, they were more than rulers of sand and gold. They were the architects of a future where love triumphed over darkness, and the desert sang a song of redemption, peace, and unbroken hearts.